Hey everybody, this is Sarah Rippel with Ripple Effect Fitness. I'm going to break down a week's worth of programming that I have been putting into practice here in my facility. What I've done is I have set my program up to be, I'm going to whip out Magic Expo here. It's a 16-week program, okay? Nothing crazy with that. What we're doing with this 16 weeks of programming is we're focusing more on strength. So the bias is going to be strength, but we're also, of course, doing a little bit of conditioning as well. So that's in there too, but it's not as much of the factor, but it's still in there. So what I do is I have an hour with each group that I train, and so you really have to think about maximizing your time. I mean, you've got warm-up, you've got your strength segment, any skill work, then you've got conditioning. You want to make sure people cool down at the end. So that's a lot to think about. So what I've done is kind of streamline my process and kind of figured out where I want to focus for each kind of weeks of programming. We're going to focus that way, still address the other stuff, but not get carried away. So what I've done is we've split this 16 weeks into four-week blocks. Okay, so the scheme that we're following with this is not a linear progression scheme. It's undulating periodization. So got a little bit of a different flavor there. And then I've also included some supplemental lifting, which we're doing tempo work. So that's just a fancy way of saying slow down the eccentric or lowering phase of the movement, and then add pause at the bottom position, or just do the slow eccentric, or just do the pause. So it could be eccentric plus a pause, or slow eccentric or pause, if that makes sense. So anything that has to do with the timing of the movement. So isometric. Slow descent, we'll put. So anytime you're lowering the weight. Okay, main lifts are going to be any form of squatting, any form of deadlifting, bench press, and overhead pressing. So squat, bench, good old deadlift, and then overhead press. Now within that, of course, I work with different levels. I've got some people that are working around some issues. I don't have everyone doing the same exact kind of lift, okay? You should be able to modify and tweak things like for each person that you have in your groups, which is the beauty of working with smaller groups. So the rep scheme that we're working on in this first block is 10. Percentages fall in line with 60 to 75%. So week 1, we're working with 60%. It progresses towards that last week where we got 75%. That's actually the 4th week of every block that I have is the test week. So that's essentially where we're kind of seeing where everybody's progress is going, and then we can kind of recoup for the next block. So we use a training max in here, which is roughly 90 to 95% of the estimated 1 rep max. So I don't do 1 rep max testing for pretty much anyone I train. In group, we usually go to like a 3 rep or 5 rep. I work with ladies. They're wanting to get stronger. They're not caring about like training for a specific like meet or anything like that. So with the training max, what's neat about that is it keeps people, it kind of gives you a little buffer zone so that you keep people from like overdoing. I mean, exercise is stress that we're putting on the body. Our clients have stress outside of here. I'm not personally wanting to add any more stress to my clients' daily load. So this kind of keeps you safe. Okay, so moving on to conditioning. In here we're working with average 10 to 15 minute pieces. Okay, so those fall at the end of the workout with a goal of being aerobic. Okay, I want my clients doing work where they're able to pace themselves. They're moving the whole time. We're not hitting the red line. They're not trying to like sprint it and then die and then have to like gasp for air and spend like 30 seconds like recuperating. It's all about pacing and just moving, just getting the blood flowing. So the formats that I like to use, I love me some EMOM work, which is every minute on the minute. We also do for time, rounds for time, and then of course AMRAP, which is as many reps or rounds as possible. Okay, so those are kind of the standard general kind of thing that most of us know in this day and age. The neat thing about these is that it kind of like, I've got conditioning pieces which I've like basically established as a way for my clients to gauge progress. So again, the goal is not being like die when you're doing this, nor is it do it in a manner that's making you do the reps sloppily. Okay, we're still trying to do it really well. But this is neat too, because just like with the percentage work on the strength work, it gives my clients the ability to not just feel that they're making improvements, but they can see it because it's quantifiable. I'm a big believer in being able to test and retest and measure things, because how else are we going to know that things are really working? Okay, so this is just another way that we can gauge progress there. So I've got some standard little workouts that we repeat, and that allows us to do that. So if we're looking at the template that I have provided for you guys, I've given you all 3 days in a week. So I have several standard warm-ups. So what I do is, instead of trying to come up with a new warm-up each time, I have standard warm-ups that I plug in, so that basically like my clients know, oh, we did that warm-up, you know, that's the same one we did the last time that we bench pressed, yada, yada, yada. So I have a bench press warm-up. I have one that falls in line with squatting, one that falls in line with deadlifting, and one that falls in line with overhead pressing. There's some overlap to them, and it's not rocket science, but it just cuts down on the explaining that I have to do in here, which is awesome, and we can get to work. So I love it when my ladies come in here, they look at the board, they know exactly what's up. So it makes my job easier. So standard warm-ups. So if you're looking at the template, that first strength block that I have, that's your main lift. Okay, so that's your squat, bench, deadlift, overhead press, or at least what I do in here. Y'all can change that up. But strength block, I usually superset that main lift with either a hip mobility drill for squat and deadlift day, or a kind of an upper back activation drill for bench press and overhead press. So like a pull apart or a straight arm band pull down, something of that nature. So that's all outlined there based on the period, like where we are falling in the block with the reps and the percentages. So that's all programmed out. Strength 2 is the tempo lifting. Okay, so eccentric and or isometric work coupled with a movement that typically is going to counter that main lift. So if we're bench pressing, it's going to be a row, a pulling type motion. So get that out of the way, leaves us enough time to hit our conditioning piece. So again, that conditioning piece is going to be aerobic in nature. We've got standard ones that I plug in. So each 4-week block has those that we go through. So my clients get to hit each one of those twice, kind of the first time and then 2 weeks later. So I've got that all mapped out. So essentially that's what's up with that. So you guys feel free to hit me up if y'all have any questions, or if you need further clarification of exercises that I've included in that template.